Today is one of those mornings. It's 7:47 a.m. and I am not feeling the morning because unfortunately married life is tough. It has its days. It has its days where it's wonderful. It has its days where it's just the most beautiful thing in the world, and I'm so grateful and so thankful. But then no one actually tells you or prepare you for the parts of a marriage that is particularly hard. And the hard parts of a marriage is the communication part. That's the hardest part of marriage. Because usually, in any situation, you need for both parties to know how to communicate. And what I'm learning is that usually within a marriage, it's going to always be one spouse that doesn't either communicate at all, who doesn't know how to communicate, or the other spouse is going to spend the majority of their time talking while the other spouse just listen and just says mm-hmm, uh-huh, and uh-huh. And that's not a great way to be. Mother sucker! Mother sucker! Mother sucker! I said I want a side of steak. They gave me a side of sausage, y'all. But I ain't about to trip. I ain't about to trip, y'all. I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna eat it. But anyways, no one tells you that before you get married, make sure your partner knows how to effectively communicate. No one tells you that. No one tells you to make sure you know how to communicate. I just find that a lot of couples get married and they don't have real guidance. They don't have no real guidance whatsoever. And then, for the men, I feel like men need their fathers to be able to guide them if their fathers are in a healthy place in their life. They don't need their dads if their dad just been married for 40 years, but their dad still consistently does the same thing. Like, that ain't gonna help nothing. If your dad and your mom been married 40 years plus, and your mom is miserable, and your dad still does the same thing, do not take advice from your dad, because your dad don't know how to change. He's stuck in his ways. And oftentimes you find that, men don't know how to communicate because they didn't have those type of relationships with their fathers where they could have an open communication with their dads. When you could have an open communication and dialogue with your father and your mother, mostly your dad, then you'll have an open dialogue with your wife. You'll be in a place where you feel comfortable, because if you're shamed by your father for communicating, more than likely you're not going to want to communicate with a woman at all. And these are the things people never tell you about in a marriage. Like, no one says when you go and you look for your mate, make sure that they have a healthy relationship with their father, and not just their dads in their life, but that their dad knows how to communicate with them, and their dad can hold them accountable and help them to grow and to elevate. Same with women. It's not just a man thing. I think that everyone needs someone in their lives to tell them, hey, listen, I see the way that you're handling your marriage, your relationship, or your wife. And I feel like you should approach it from this way. And I'm talking about from people who are in healthy relationships, and your mothers and your fathers, because sometimes we don't see the us in the relationship. And I think that's like a common thing now. And that's something that I think that I'm going through. When you don't see the you in a relationship, you don't see your nagging, you don't see your you don't see your view on things. And that goes for both parties. I think when you become in a relationship and you've been there for like 19 years, 20 years, you stop hearing your spouse. Like how when you have kids and people be like, your kids just in there screaming and shouting. And you're like, oh, I don't even hear them, because you've learned to tune your kids out. Same thing with your spouse. You eventually learn to tune your spouse out. But let me tell you why that is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to tune your spouse out. Because when you start tuning your spouse out, the things that your spouse is really saying to you that is really something that they're going through, or something that's really so important in your marriage, you're going to miss all of those key things that they're telling you. And what's going to happen is that spouse is going to be communicating and communicating and communicating, but because you're tuning them out, they're not being heard. And then when they say, hey, listen, I said this to you. No, you didn't. And then they're going to get to a place of shutting down because I've already then told you this. I've already tried to talk to you, but now I feel like you're dismissing me, because if you're not listening to me, you're dismissing me. Let's be honest. If you tell your spouse, hey, I feel this way, I feel like you're treating me this way, and then your spouse says, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, I feel like that's dismissal, because how do you know how you're treating your spouse? You only see it from your perspective. Your spouse has to live it, right? I think that people get so comfortable with each other, they stop putting in the work. And people don't tell married couples, when you hit that 5-year mark, it's going to get hard. Your relationship is going to be tested. But once your relationship is tested, you have to have the skills to communicate effectively with your spouse. And, you know, for women, I don't think people are actually out here telling women, listen, happy wife, happy life is a myth. Happy wife, happy life is abusive. Happy wife, happy life is selfish. People should be telling women that. But don't nobody want to tell women that, because we often think that the only person in a relationship whose feelings matter is just the woman. That is so far from the truth. It should be happy partners. Each person in a relationship should feel happy. They should feel like they're heard. They should feel like they're seen. You know, and for the people out there who don't tell the men that it's okay to express your feelings. Express your feelings with your wife. Your wife should be your safe haven. Your wife should be the person that you can go to unload whatever you're feeling, the stress of the work day, the stress from the kids. But oftentimes, no one's telling the men that. So the men bottle it up, and the wife have no clue. And then you got her over here trying to make sure she's just happy. And then you got him over here bottling up things. And then, bam, they're both going to end up exploding. And then they're going to file for separation or divorce because neither one of them communicated. That is a part of communication. Knowing that your happiness isn't the only one that matters. Equal partnership. Marriage should be equal partnership. I know a lot of people are going to be like, girl, you crazy. Nah. But here's the thing, though. If your partner comes to you and tell you, I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling seen, I don't feel safe in this relationship. And it doesn't have to be like a physical safety thing. You can feel unsafe in your relationship with your feelings, with your emotions, with opening up. And if your spouse tells you that you should really be looking in the mirror like, why is it my spouse does not feel safe to come to me about things? Maybe it's the way I raise my voice. Maybe it's the tone in my voice. Maybe it's the flexion in my voice when I'm talking to her or him. Or maybe I've created an atmosphere where I made my spouse feel like she or he cannot communicate with me. And this happens a lot of the times when you dismiss your partner's feelings. When you tell your partner, I'm not doing that. That's just how you took it. That's how you took it. But if that's how they took it, there had to be a part of you that wrapped it up and presented it to them in that way. You know, and sometimes I think that when we're in relationships, we want to be perfect. We want to be right. And so when it comes down to being honest, we don't want to look ourselves in the mirror and say, I did say that in a tone that could have made him or her shut down. And there's no flaw in being honest with yourself. There's no flaws in that. Like, you have to grow. You have to elevate. And in order for you to do that, baby, you gonna have to face yourself sometimes. I'm gonna tell you, communication is really key in a relationship. Understanding. Understanding is so important. Like, you have to be understanding that your partner is different from you. Your partner isn't going to receive a message the same way that you received it. Your partner isn't going to feel the same emotions and feelings that you feel. The way that you want them to feel, it's not going to happen like that, because y'all are two different people. And I think people get caught up in this. Let me give you guys an example. I told my girlfriend, example, that I wanted this and she didn't do it. Okay. Now, if you communicated with your girlfriend that you wanted this item or whatever it is, and she didn't do it, just blatantly just didn't do it, okay, I could see why you could be upset. But if you assuming, because someone said this to me, my girlfriend knows what I like, so why do I have to tell her this? Baby, that woman is not a psychic. Women say the same thing. Ladies, that man is not a psychic. You have to communicate. You have to tell your person what you want and what you need. Now, granted, I am a woman. I had times in relationships, guys, where I was like, we've been together for X amount of years. You should know what I want. You should know what I need. But what I learned is women are for Venus and men are for Mars, or whatever the saying is. We really don't be on the same page. And men really don't be having a clue. And so I know this is going to sound crazy, y'all. But sometimes you got to train your man. Sometimes you got to train your woman. And I know it sounds weird to say it like that, but you have to teach people about you. And even though you're in that relationship with that person, you're going to keep growing and elevating, and you're going to change. So the person that you were last year, the person that they was last year, they might not be that person this year. So when I say train, I mean you guys are going to have to communicate with each other and say, hey, this is what I like. I would like for you to, be mindful sometimes. If you out at the outlet mall, if you was to pick up, I'm going to say some Chanel number 5. You know what I'm saying? Just to get the thought process of being thoughtful in their head. And I think women should be equally as thoughtful to the men, because listen, men are humans. Men have emotions, and men have a greater need for emotional connection. I would say more than women. They just don't like to show it. You got to pull that stuff out of your man. You got to. Because if you don't, that man will stay locked up, bottled up. Create an atmosphere where they feel safe enough to open up. Men, same thing with your women. And let's show each other grace. I think that we always put each other on these pedestals where when you first get in a relationship and everything's so good and that man ain't did nothing to you to make you doubt, that woman ain't did nothing to you to make you doubt, but you always got to remember that that person is human. Because when that person falls from grace, all of our feelings, all of our thoughts about them, everything positive that they've done in our life, we throw it out the window as if they're not human. And showing grace in a relationship is so important. And not giving up every time the tides turn hard. Because you ever heard the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater? Listen, stuff is going to get hard in your marriage. You're going to face some things that neither one of y'all ever had to face before, because, maybe neither one of y'all ever been married before. This is some stuff that y'all going to have to figure out together. But I think that in order for you guys to make it work, y'all have to show each other grace. You have to be fair. You have to be understanding. You got to know how to communicate. You have to watch your tone. You have to watch the flexing in your voice. You have to watch being condescending and being sarcastic, because sometimes we get in our emotions. And, I'm a woman, guys. I ain't saying all women now. I ain't saying all women. I'm going to speak for myself. I get a little sarcastic. I start flexing my neck. Okay? And then I have to catch myself. And I have to be like, okay, girlfriend, calm it down. You going next level crazy. And then when I start, you hurt. And I say, you know what? Lord. Girl. We ain't busting nobody's head to the white meat, girl. That's your man. Calm down. You know? And you have to do that. You have to be able to check yourself in a relationship. You do. Because if you don't, then who? You can't, your spouse can't be the regulator of your emotions all the time. And that's what I think people be wanting. They want their spouse to regulate their emotions. No, you're grown. I'm grown. We have to be grown. Meaning, we have to learn to control our emotions. If you're at that state in your life where you get some oatmeal from McDonald's and it's just as stiff as it want to be, and you want to go back and drive your car through the drive-thru, you gotta control your emotions. You can't do that. You gonna make going to jail. Clink, 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 clink. Because what the heck? What is that? What is that? I digress. But no. In all reality, marriage is an institution. I'm telling you. And sometimes you gotta treat your marriage like it's your business. You know, like it's your LLC corporation. How are you gonna treat your business? You're gonna make sure you invest in your business. You're gonna make sure your analytic view of your business is on point. You're gonna make sure the data is matching the numbers and everything else. You gotta feed your business, right? You gotta feed your marriage. And I'm not saying treat it like it is an investment and you just throw money at your spouse. No. The way you want your business to grow and elevate and succeed, that's the same way you got to be about your marriage. You got to want your marriage to grow and prosper. Because ultimately, when you get married, the goal should be forever. And I know forever don't happen always. But the goal should be forever. And in order for something to last forever, you got to take care of it. You got to nurture it. You got to cut the grass. You got to feed it food. Shade it for the sun when it's too hot. You got to make all of these investments to make sure your marriage and your spouse keeps going. Is it okay to quit sometimes? If you at a point and you know it's not working and it's not going to work, and you didn't try counseling, don't give up without trying counseling. Don't just give up. Because sometimes you learn that your spouse isn't even aware of their trauma. And if your spouse is going through trauma and they just finding it out, I think that you owe them a little something to work through it with them, to be understanding. You know, like, people like to change people like they change underwears. More than they change underwears. Let's be honest. I know a few people who have a new man every 24 days. Or a new woman. But anyways, you have to be willing to stick it out. Because we're in a society now where people just like, oh my God, it's not working out. Oh my God. Oh, you're the problem. Let me go. Red flag. Let's be honest. I ain't saying ignore red flags. I'm just saying, if you aren't married, you aren't and ignored every red flag there was, and you're married the person now. Be willing to work through it, unless it's a situation where you're in harm or they're, being abusive or something like that. That's different. But if it's the little fights, like one me and my husband got into last night, y'all. We got it, and this is the first time we ever fought about money. We fought about a bill, and I felt some type of way. And he said to me, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Ooh, that lit my fire! Yeah! I looked at him and I said, the inconvenience? The inconvenience? Bruh, being late to pick me up for work is an inconvenience. And so, he's so used to upsetting me, right? And then I'm calm, right? Like, it takes like literally 30 minutes for me to calm down and for me just to forget everything that happened. But y'all, I was teed off for the whole day. I was mad for the whole day. And then he was just so frustrated with me. And I told him, I said, you have to show me grace. I said, I just really want some grace. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're so used to me responding in a positive way or me being calm all the time. And I have every right to be mad today. I have every right to be upset. And we have to respect our people's feelings. Like, we can't control what they're going through because they're humans. And it took a couple of conversations for him to get it. But then he got it. He says, oh, okay. He says, I'm just so used to you just going back to cracking jokes at me and just hugging me. And I told him, I said, listen, to me, this was so serious because I said something to you about this over and over and over. This isn't the first, second, third, fourth. This is the fifth time. Okay, man. This is the fifth time. Okay, because by the fifth time, you should have it. You should have it by the fifth time. That's what I told him. And so he was like, you know what? Okay, I get it. I understand it. And then, you know, I just told him, I said, you can't just expect me to always just be that sweet person. I'm allowed to get angry. I'm allowed to have my emotions. And sometimes we have to allow our spouses to have their emotions. If your spouse is upset with you and they say, hey, listen, I need to take a break. Not a break from the relationship, honey. We ain't saying a break from the relationship. Take a break. I mean, I need to step out the room, go downstairs, make some coffee, realign my spirit. Okay, that's the break I'm talking about. Now we walking out the door and I need to go see Ginger from down the street, because then I'm about to pull up on Ginger and we gonna, okay. But no, but I'm not gonna keep running my mouth too much. But I just wanted to give you guys just a little bit of encouragement, because we see marriages end and new ones start and then they end because the people who were married before get divorced or marry someone else, and then that person walks away from them. You have to address the issues in the marriage. You have to seek counseling. You have to seek marriage counseling and personal counseling, because let's be honest, we all have some sort of baggage. We all have some sort of drama, and we all bring it into our marriages unwillingly and unknowingly. But once you know that this is an issue, then you need to readdress it. You need to say, listen, I gotta get this together, because this can't tank my marriage. This can't tank my family. It can't tank it. You have to get yourself together. But marriage is hard. Marriage is a lot of work. Don't get married if you're not willing to put in the work. If you feel like you're going to be gone in 30 days, or you're going to feel trapped because you got to do a little bit of work, marriage ain't for you. Not in this present time. You see so many people out here tying a knot because they want status. They want to say they didn't have the big wedding. They want to say they got a man or they got a woman. That's fun and dandy, but what happens when you can't keep that man or that woman and you can't maintain the marriage? Now you at the end of something that could have been great. And now either financially you're going to get a hit, emotionally you're going to take a hit. People set themselves up for pain for no reason because they're not mature yet. They're not ready yet. They don't understand what marriage is. They just understand what it makes you look like. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this as clear as day. People who are married. Marriage is beautiful. Marriage is wonderful. It is. It is a trying time at times. Sometimes it's tumultuous. But stop telling people who ain't married they don't have no value because they ain't married. Because, baby, just because you went and got married don't mean you perfect. I went and got married. I'm still flawed. I still got insecurities. I still got things I go through. And let me tell you, some of these women out here smart. Some of these men out here smart. They're not getting married right away because they're preparing themselves for marriage. I have a friend right now who's going to counseling. And he's going to counseling because he knows he has some ways about him that he needs to address before he ever thinks about taking a wife. And he wants to get married more than anything in the world. And I always tell him, I commend you and I respect you for that. Keep seeking counseling, but you can still date and figure it out, you know? I have female friends out here right now who are like, girl, I'm not in a space in my life to be understanding to nobody. And she had to decline her boyfriend when he proposed to her. I thought that was the most mature thing you could do. I thought that was so mature of her and so mature of my best friend, because they didn't want to mess up other people's lives because they knew they weren't ready for this. So just because you're married, I love being married. I've been married for 11 years. I've been with my man for 19 years, about to be 20. But just because I'm married don't make me better than the woman who's not married, the man who is not married, baby. You don't get married and the marriage certificate says perfect. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. Now, I will warn y'all, don't take advice from your single friends. That's the only thing I can say is facts. Them niggas crazy. They crazy. Single people think crazy, okay? I'm telling you, my single friends be having me on some stuff. They be telling me some stuff. I be like, girl, what? What? Your single friends will tell you some crazy stuff. Hey to everyone in the comments. I can't see the comments there. The way I get the phone set up. So if you guys are commenting, thank you guys. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Thank you for everybody who tuned in and stayed with me. I appreciate all of you guys. But that's a Laura's take on marriage. Remember, y'all, I ain't perfect. This is my first marriage. And it's gonna be my only one. Because baby, I don't see how y'all get married 5, 6, 11 times. I can't do it. I can't do it. One time is enough. One time is enough. One time is enough. Because it takes a lot. I'm telling you, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of patience. But I'm not perfect. I have my flaws. I'm learning more about myself in this marriage. I'm learning more about my husband in this marriage. And we're trying to do the best that we can do. That's why I always tell people always be like, oh my God, your marriage looks so perfect. And I get mad. I get upset when people label my marriage as perfect. I have a good marriage, don't get it twisted. But it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. There's not one perfect thing on this earth, baby. But I always tell them, my marriage is not perfect, okay? I just have tools that I utilize in my marriage. And we have separated, get back together, separated, get back together, okay? Been in marriage counseling. The thing is, we know that we'd rather be together versus being out here in these streets. Because, baby, I've been out here. Not long. I dabbled in the streets for a little bit. I peeked my head out. And I said, no, I go back home, because what the hell is this? But I'm so serious. I love you guys, appreciate you guys. If you are a married couple watching this, or if you're someone who wants to get married, I'm not saying my advice is perfect, but I'm telling you, I've been in this thing for a little bit of time, and I learned a few things. I learned a few things about me, I learned a few things about my spouse. And I know that the one thing that you could do is survive your marriage. And I'm telling you, you can survive and be very happy. The reason why I say survive, because baby, if your husband can't cook like my husband can't cook, baby, you'll be running to the toilet all the time. Baby, gave me food poisoning on Mother's Day. I still feel the effects. That's the stuff I'm talking about. All right, bye. Oh, you want to make, I don't know how to be a mod. Let me see if I can make you a mod. As moderator. All right, you are, oh, I can't do it. All right, y'all.